So now we're going to be talking about top survey, Netherlands and France. So there's really nothing to really talk about. Just like the cons, the things that to reduce this disqualifications, and the difference between the France and Netherlands you get between them. But generally, let me just say France surveys. I don't know about general Netherlands surveys. Yeah. Now let me talk about France surveys first. Now France surveys now, for example, and obviously France surveys is stricter than Netherlands server. Like it's stricter than Netherlands top survey. You see, if you can't make a mistake in your region. I know I think France all those their stuff is kind of complicated and stuff like that. On top surveying, they take their region, those kind of local questions, they take it very, very seriously. They can ask you same question 5 times. See same question, bro. Like it's just depending on your understanding of the language. Like literally that France talk survey is like they want to know if you're using translator. You have to be as fluent as possible using French. So that France survey, but like if they ask a France talk survey, I mean, if they ask a question, now, obviously yes, if you're working in the language in the survey, maybe you're doing France surveys now generally, you have to be replying them in French, unless maybe English and France and French as your language. You get so some surveys might be in English, so you can reply in English. You get, but the ones that are in French, you must reply because like most people living in Paris, all those places, all those places, like they are mostly French speaking, so they don't really want you to be. And top survey France, they pay very high. Like they have high paying surveys. If they have very high paying surveys, you just have to start doing the small ones, then later you start qualifying for the big ones. And when you open a France top survey account, just like the normal top survey account, you start with low surveys first. Why is that? Because your profile is just new. You have not gotten any information whatsoever about you, and they always ask that first profiling question that like it gives you £1 free. Yes, they always ask that question. You have to give them as much, because when you give them as much information, like when you do enough surveys, they will stop asking you questions whenever you want to do surveys. You just go right into the survey. You understand? Then by then, maybe like if you have done surveys and done surveys, they will stop asking you. They'll still asking, but it will be very, 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 very far less. So you start with small surveys, then you start going up, they start going up little by little, and they are very, very, very strict about like their local language. You get they can ask you same question like 5 times. It might not even be in that survey, but they're very, very strict about it. For example, now just use ChatGPT and make sure ChatGPT replies you casually. You get, and don't copy and paste, don't do all that. And obviously, yes, make sure you do your IP analysis very, 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 very well. Because generally France sites they are very strict about that, like that your IP you get claiming or overpriced. And yes, your profiling, make sure your profiling is balanced. Don't make it too perfect. Don't make it like high education, high paying. It works for some survey site too, but like France is very strict. So make it like a normal one, a normal profile, just like you always do. Don't make it over perfect. Like you get now. The profile is just too perfect. You can make it. You can be like, for example, now your paying is let's say 100,000 now. Let's say it's 100,000 now. Then your education instead of it being postgraduate, it can be masters. You get, because you can masters, yes. And depending on your age too, you can't put PhD and be using 835. You get, yeah. So just make the profile okay, the profile matching, check the profile well. Using translator on France surveys can be really, really, really frustrating. And disqualifications on top survey France is a lot, and it is very, very, very frustrating if you're not careful. The disqualification in France sites are very, very high, and they're very, very, very strict. Now going on to Netherlands top surveys, this is much easier because people living in Netherlands, but I would say most of them are English speakers. You get, they speak Dutch too, but they're English speakers because you do some surveys that will even mix with English, and it's much easier. You get, it's much easier, more better qualifications, far less stricter than France surveys, easier to complete, and yeah, your profiling must be balanced. For if you're taking surveys in Netherlands, in top survey, your profiling must be very, very consistent and normal. It is far less stricter than France top survey. They ask about car industries, supermarkets, all the stuff. France usually asks about all those tractors, yes, all those kind of tractors, motor companies. Why Netherlands usually asks supermarkets, all those radio agencies, music agencies, yes, all those like advertising agencies. Now, like for example, now I've seen like Red Bull, all those stuff. Their surveys are much easier. But once you lose your account once on top survey in one country, you can't create another account in that country anymore because they'll keep on active for number. You have to move to another country. It is far less stricter. If you want to start top survey, you can start with Netherlands top survey and be careful with the accounts. You can cash out same day, yes, but don't do high paying surveys. Just keep, because they need enough information for you to qualify. And once start getting, like, if you get just 3 disqualifications, the account, they'll divide the amount of surveys. Like you'll be seeing the surveys reducing literally on the profile. And yes, if you don't have another device and you are doing top surveys, like you are using split screen, for example, now I think if you're using split screen, they can notice when you obviously stay on the same screen, but they will notice when the tab changes. I don't know, sir, but also that's also part of it too. Their trap questions are easy to recognize, unlike France surveys. Their trap questions are easy to recognize. It's easy to understand what they need from you. Top survey Netherlands is more like focused on that kind of they're more focused on like products. Their surveys are simpler, stable survey flow, more stable survey flow. Yeah, I'm not forgiving the language, even if you don't write in Dutch. But unlike France now, if you don't write in that their language now, your account is gone. And yes, and of course, as you all know, when you're done with your surveys and log out, clear the tab, clear the browser, log out completely from the website. So any questions that you guys have, you can come in and answer all questions about. And yes, if you want a successful top survey account, it's all about that consistent profile and IP analysis. Like to be doing IP analysis every time, even if you just log out, you just check that, just go back and check, because there have been some cases that will be like, okay, you see the same IP, I'll go and check. They might even move the IP and bring it back maybe next day or something, and have to stop survey for that time. Like always do IP analysis, make sure your time, your location, your settings is on, don't receive calls while doing surveys. Those are the basics that you have to have generally when doing surveys, because top survey is very, very strict. Like what I'm trying to say is the problem is you can't just be going in and out of your app anyhow repeatedly. If you do it once in a while by doing surveys, you get. But when you do it now, for example, now you do it and then you move out of another app and you go into another app, you answer the question immediately. Obviously, now even if I'm not using, even if I'm not the what's the algorithm safe, I will know that you are probably using something to do the exam, to do the survey. You can also use split screen, yes. But when you move from another tab to another tab, they will notice like that you have it's still the app is still working, but it's working in the background. So you get. They will notice where you're touching on the screen. They'll notice when your activity. You know when you do split screen, and you click on tab. You get what I'm getting at here. I'm not saying you should have two phones the most. You can still do it with one phone, but don't just be too frequent. But that applies to top survey. You get. If you create an account, if you're using split screen, nothing goes up. But if you are moving out of the app and into another app, you know even top survey itself, the survey sites that you are on, they will know that you're leaving that site. Because some survey sites, immediately you leave like and come back, it refresh and start again. Like many survey sites are there like that. So you get what I'm trying to say now. If you use split screen, yes, and there's also survey sites that if you use split screen, you can get to the information there. Survey sites don't allow you to use split screen. So survey sites safe, they match.